do want to hear about this banning cell phones in schools, because I remember in school the teacher would just either take the phone or take the battery, and you can't take batteries out of phones anymore. So I want to, and I do think that cell phones in class, like, it's obviously a huge issue, especially nowadays where every kid actually has one. So I would love to hear more about that.
Well, you must be a spring chicken, because I, for one, did not have I did not have a cell phone when I was in school. So I'm aging myself a little bit. But I mean, the visual is, yes, we are all attached. I mean, adults too. We're all addicted to our phones as well. Every one of us, has our phones within arm's reach right now. But imagine that when you were in school, your mom was like, "Hey, son, grab your boombox, pack up the TV, get together all your walkie-talkies, and once you get to school, make sure you set them all out on your desk, turn them all on at the same time, and maybe watch some porn or some beheading videos, or just generally entertain yourself. But like, make sure you have all that right out on your desk when the teacher's trying to teach." It's insane. Like, the fact that we have let it get this far is crazy. But that's what we've done. We have given kids a portal into endless distraction, oftentimes with wildly inappropriate content. We've also given, pedophiles and abusers direct line of communication to our kids, which is crazy. But the reality is, like, we are the adults in the room, and school, I know it's okay, call me crazy, but schools are supposed to be where kids learn, right? Like, it's supposed to be for education. And yet we know that it's impossible to expect that from our children when we've set them up for failure, right? And we see that most districts, I mean, if you ask them, most districts technically have something in their policy that say no phones in the classrooms. Is that enforced? Absolutely not. Are they FaceTiming each other between classrooms? Yes. I mean, are they looking at, you can hide it behind a book. They're being used to cheat. The grades all of a sudden in fifth period are way better than the grades in first period because pictures of the tests have been circulated. But more than that, actually the most pressing thing is that it's leading to isolation, depression, and suicide, especially among our young girls. And so the least that we can do for them is to give them 7 hours of uninterrupted time where their brains are not tethered to these constant notifications. And so, there was a book that just came out, An Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. It has really gone viral. And you really see, because he's not telling us anything that we don't know to already be true. I don't have to sit here and make an argument to you guys or to your audience that smartphones are doing some weird stuff to our brains, and that social media is not good for us, and that the addiction is real, right? We have all of this data. So it's just, we're to the point now where, well, is anybody going to do something about it? You see it kind of catching up. Governor Huckabee Sanders sent a letter to 50 governors within the last 2 weeks saying, I'm going to follow this book. Here's a copy of this book. There's 4 tenets in it. It's like no smartphones before 18 or before 16. I think no social media before 18, more free play, and finally, no phones in school. So as a legislator, as a parent, I hope that the parents can come together and collectively adopt those first 3 policies. As a legislator, and as who has a responsibility to the students and also to taxpayers to make sure that this amount of money that we're going to fund public schools is actually going towards education. And so while I wish school districts would adopt this, immediately on their own and really enforce it, and we've seen success in the schools that have done that, they need the encouragement. And the state's the bad guy for a lot of different things. Hey, I'm fine with the state being the bad guy to make sure that our kids are allowed to have their brains developed before they're getting on phones in classrooms.
It seems like a slam dunk issue. I can't imagine. I mean, I know personally, I'm a parent of 3, and my kids are not old enough for cell phones. I don't know if they ever will be old enough for cell phones. I don't know if I'm old enough for a cell phone. Yeah. But you're talking about school districts already have the policy, right? But it's just not really enforced. So now the state comes in, and the state might say, this is not allowed in public schools or whatever. if you receive public money for schooling, you can't have cell phones in school. What would be the enforcement mechanism in that case? Would they remove funding? How do you make sure it's enforced?
I think the better way to go, we're still working through some of the details. I'm still working on drafting the legislation. But the places where it had, first of all, you need full buy-in from the superintendent and the administration. I was encouraged to read a middle school, again, not even a high school, a middle school, I think in Ohio, that put it into place and using yonder pouches. So, yonder pouches, these neoprene magnetic locking things that if you go see Joe Rogan, you got to put your phone into it because you have your phone with you, but you can't access it. So they instituted a policy where when you come in, you hand you get your yonder pouch, your phone goes in it. It's locked. It can stay with you, either in your locker or in your backpack. And when you're finished for the day, there's a unlocking thing as you walk out the door. And so that's not even, it's not even classrooms. That's more like kind of campus wide, where even during lunch, they were shocking, but during lunch, kids were forced to make eye contact with each other, maybe even talk. And there was some resistance at first. So that, of course, the students, my life is ending. What are we going to do without our cell phones? These adults are so mean to us. The teachers, oh my gosh, I have not talked to a single teacher. And this is a good follow-up to our school choice conversation, because when teachers, feel like they've been kind of left in the dirt by for a lot of different reasons, like this is something that could massively help them, because they're the ones that right now they're having to control 30 different teenagers that are on their phones, and they don't have the capacity to control that. So teachers love it, administration love it, and eventually the students love it too, because 2 months later they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I love being freed from the constant notifications, from the constant pressure, and I actually am making friends. So the results are there, but I don't know. You said it's a slam dunk, and who would oppose it? Michael, I know you.
Slam dunk. I mean,
I was in a meeting with Jeff Arnett, superintendent of Eanes ISD, which is one of the top performing school districts in the state of Texas, and he was talking to me about mental health of students. And they have all these mental health professionals, and the teachers are having to do some mental health work with kids. Like they're having to manage that. That's not their job. There's teachers, not mental health professionals. I was like, why don't you just take phones out of schools? I mean, that's not a fix to everything, but it's something that could be done. And he laughed at me. And the laugh wasn't like, you're stupid. The laugh was like, I will be accosted, not by students, but by parents. Was what he thought. He thought he would be attacked by the parents who feel like their kids need to have the phones so that they can contact them at any point during the day. So I think that some of the pushback is actually going to come from parents who are, as Jonathan Haidt would say, coddling the American mind. They're safetyism parents, like helicopter moms and dads who their kids can't get away from their phone for 5 seconds for fear of what might happen.
Charles,
Yeah, that's exactly right. That there are some helicopter parents who are initially like, well, what if I need to get a hold of my kid for this? So but the pendulum is swinging back. Like I would say, parents are starting to realize, okay, this is doing a lot more damage than it is good, and they're tired of arguing with their teens about it too, right? I mean, they're having to set policies. We're talking about school policy, but they're having to argue with their teens about this when they're not at school, and so I think they would be grateful for the cover too. There is going to be some pushback. Pushback that I have heard so far is, well, what about school safety? I need to be able to get in touch with my child at all time, or what if something bad happens? Well, they're still going to have their phones with them. They're still going to, be reachable. You can cut into a yonder pouch if you need to. There's still landlines. The teacher still has a phone. Like we were all in school, and we turned out without our phones, and we turned out okay. So you have to assure I think the majority of parents immediately love it and support it, but there are a small loud group of parents that have to become comfortable with not having that instant access for their kid to their kids. But that can be overcome. The other, there are some kids who maybe use it to track their insulin, or there's like a medical need that can be handled through a school nurse in between periods or whatever they need to do for that. But we have to break some parents' impression that their phones make their kids safer because they can get a hold of their parent at any time. And that is so wrong, because we know that the danger is actually on the kid's phone, right? They're exposed to many more things on their phones than not. But I think the momentum, I think this book hit at the right time. I think the fact that it's gone so viral. I mean, you've seen the author on Oprah and the Today Show, and like he's everywhere. You see governors stepping up and talking about it. You see people like me being like, all right, let's do this. What do we need to do? So it's just about being bold and taking the courage to do it. And I plan on launching it and seeing how it goes. So watch out. Yeah. I'm writing that we're going to publish next week. And, if people want to join the conversation or give me feedback, like I'd love for people to connect with me on social media. There you go, on social media, or send me an email, give me your feedback. Let me know if you can help, because it's not going to be as easy as you might think. And the big, how is AT&T, how is big tech going to feel about this? Well, Facebook and Instagram and Mark Zuckerberg are going to push back tooth and nail, because we're taking away 7 hours of kids' eyeballs, having kids' brains monetized by them. That big tech is going to push back. How's AT&T going to feel? Are they going to push back? Are they going to see the light? So it's just going to have to take us really uniting, and always keeping the kids' interests in the front of our minds if we're going to get it done.
Yeah. Show that, Charles, we just show that chart real quick, just for a visual.
Which chart?
I sent you guys a article in the chat. Like, this is all, I mean, I know it's not, this is all I think parents need to see that are worried about the safety of their kids. It's like,
1 second, pulling it up now.
This is a chart of teen mental health and depression over time.
I beat you.
And the introduction of social media and cell phones. Look at that.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is insane.
It's astonishing. Like that's why we take phones out of schools. Because the risk of not doing something about this and not taking a chance and doing anything we can to get these things out of kids' faces is too great.
That's crazy. Wow. I mean, and for those parents who are concerned, like, whatever happened to just calling the office? Like, you need to get your kid. Like, what? You can't do that. I mean, it seems so easy. And it is interesting, though, because I feel like some people say that there isn't a psychological impact, but I think about things like the phantom vibrate that I feel sometimes when I think I have a notification and it never happened, and it's only because I'm always on my phone. And so I can only imagine that if my brain was still developing, like, all the impacts that has of constantly being on and constantly being notified, and also seeing all the horrific stuff. I go on Instagram and I see like 10 people die a day, and I don't like request this content. Like, it just pops up. And so I can only imagine what a lot of people or a lot of these kids are seeing. So, I mean, it's critically important. It's critically important. And I hope people kind of get on the bandwagon with this.